Hello, everybody. This is Eliakim Cohen back with Torah through Truth, Truth through Torah. This is lecture 4 of our 23-part Hebrew letter series. We're doing all 22 of the Hebrew letters and all 5 of the final letters wrapped into one episode. So it's a 23-part series, and this is episode 4. And today I've got a big treat for you. The biggest letter of them all, the Lamed, the oversized Lamed. You know, we've done Aleph, Mem, and Yud so far. 3 very easy ones to research. And I was thinking yesterday, might be a little hard to, for the Lamed, because the gematria is 30. You don't really think of 30 being, so prevalent in Judaism. The Yud is 10, the Mem is 40. That's easy. Aleph is 1. I mean, that was a layup. I found so much stuff on the Lamed. Oh my gosh, I had to pare the lecture down because it would just go on forever. And today I was just walking a few miles. I'm going to do my lecture and then finish my walk another 7-8 miles. So I started doing tomorrow's lecture, which is the Kuf. And I'm thinking, okay, now I'm really going to have problems finding it. There's just an endless amount of unbelievable divine wisdom in the Hebrew alphabet. And that's literally the point of this entire 23-part series, to show one thing. God created the world. God created the world through words, right? 10 utterances, it says in the Talmud, right? The 10 utterances were using the Hebrew alphabet. The language that Hashem gave the Torah to the Jewish people was Hebrew. Ergo, every single letter is special and unique and powerful and eternal. I say this in every episode. There is no difference between an A and a T and an X. They all could have been interchanged. Whoever created English, the X could have been an A, the T could have been a Q. They don't matter. Their shapes don't matter. The order doesn't matter. In Hebrew, an Aleph could only be an Aleph. It could only be in its place as the head of the alphabet. It could only look like an Aleph, and it could only have the gematria of 1. So too with the Lamed, as we'll see. So this lecture is sponsored by my dear friend Lisa for her brother, Michoel ben Sinai Natan. We've done 3 letters so far for Michoel, her beloved brother. We've done Aleph, Mem, and Yud, and now we're doing Lamed. And coincidentally, all of the letters that we've done so far happen to be in my name. My name is Eliakim. Aleph, Lamed, Yud, Kuf, that's the only one we haven't done, Yud, and Mem. I'll tell you why the Lamed is extra. I also want to thank Apex Custom for gifting me this beautiful 3-piece suit. It's actually a 2-piece suit when I'm wearing it because I'm just wearing shorts right now. But you can't see that. But I just want to do full disclosure. Apex Custom with the K. They are an unbelievable company. You can literally get fitted for a suit online. I want to thank them for being an eternal sponsor of Torah through Truth, Truth through Torah. Now, what's so special about the Lamed for me? We'll start off a little selfishly. Well, when I was in yeshiva in 2008 and 9, so I believe this was in 2009, there was a Haknasa Sefer Torah at our shul, meaning someone had written a Sefer Torah, and at the end, the sofer leaves X amount of letters blank, and people from the community can come and actually, it's a mitzvah to write your own Sefer Torah, in your lifetime. The sages have allowed for the fact that just, bubbling in one of the letters actually fulfills that mitzvah. So I was really, really excited for this mitzvah. So we go in, and the sofer asked me what letter I wanted. So I said, what letters are left? And he showed me the line. I said, I want the Lamed. I mean, he didn't ask why. He was, after writing a Sefer Torah, it probably takes a year or 2. Minimum a year, usually 2.5 years to write a Sefer Torah. I mean, to write a Sefer Torah, the first thing you have to do is just take the parchment and you have to draw lines. You have to imprint lines. When you look at the Torah, you'll see that every letter is resting on a line other than the Yud, right? The Yud is the floating letter. So I chose the Lamed. Why? Because it was the most amount of ink. I wanted the biggest possible mitzvah. The Lamed is the only letter that is oversized other than the final letters, which, typically dip below the line. So Lamed has a very special place in my heart. It is the only time I've ever actually, written in a Sefer Torah. It also happens to be, like I said, a letter of my name. So let's get started. This is just a really, really fun, powerful episode here. Okay, we always start with a little overview. The Hebrew letter Lamed is the 12th letter of the alphabet. It is pronounced L and has several meanings rooted in its ancient shape of a shepherd's staff or a cattle prod. I mean, the Lamed literally looks like, a stick that you can see some people hiking with. It's got a very unique and intricate shape to it. Its tall, soaring design can represent royalty, aspiration, and the heart, lev, right? The Hebrew word for heart is lev. Lev starts, of course, with a lamed. While it's named lamed, every Hebrew word also means something. I mean, A doesn't mean anything. T doesn't mean anything. Every Hebrew letter, Aleph means something. Beis means something. Lamed specifically means something. I think of all the Hebrew letters, I would say Lamed has the most powerful and known meaning. It is the root word of both to teach and to learn. In English, teach and learn, they don't have any correlation. In Hebrew, they are directly related. Lomed, learn, milamed. Malamed, right? A teacher is called a malamed. The root word is the same for both. Why? Because both, we'll talk about this later, the heart of the teacher and of the student have to be, sort of coalescing. They have to be in it for the right reasons, which is to what? To spread the beauty and power and truth of the Torah and to receive the beauty and power and truth of the Torah. Its usage can function also as a preposition, meaning to or for. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I did a whole lecture on one of the most famous quotes in all of Judaism. Kol Yisrael yesh chelik lechem lit olam haba. It's often mistranslated as bit olam haba. Whatever bit olam haba would be. But it's actually lit olam haba. We're going to talk about that because it's very, very important. If you want to say to someone, I am going to the beach. Ani holech le chof hayam. Le means to or for. Lamed is the 12th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, like I said, and it's the symbol of learning. It is translated literally as the word for learning, and also a staff or a goad, as we said. It is located at the center of the alphabet, AlephBeis, and it represents the heart, lev. And Kabbalah learning is mostly done with the heart and the soul, not just the mind. There's very, very smart people that cannot grasp anything in Judaism because their heart and their soul is not in it. They think they are too smart for the eternal, ancient wisdom of Hashem. The Lamed indicates that spiritual learning is the heart of a Jew's existence. Man's course in life, a Jew's course in life, is to learn and express spiritual teachings and to practice it with every breath of our life. Now, what's very unique about the Lamed, just in terms of where you see it in the Torah? Well, the Torah begins with a Beis, right? We just had Bereshis 2 weeks ago. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashemayim v'es haaretz. How does the Torah end? We know it begins with a Beis. How does it end? It ends with a Lamed. The very last letter of the Torah is Lamed. Why? Because what's the very first letter? Beis. So the very last letter and the very first letter is a Lamed and a Beis, which spells what? Lev. Again, everything in Judaism is with your heart and with your soul. You need to be fully committed. You have to have the kavanah. You have to have the intention. Everything directing le Hashem, to Hashem. Okay, meanings and symbolism. The shepherd's staff. The most common interpretation of the Lamed is a shepherd's staff, used to guide, prod, or protect the flock. Aspiration and teaching. The letter's height, which extends above all other letters, symbolizes aspiration, reaching higher and higher and connecting always to the divine source, to Hashem. It is the root of the word to teach, melamed, and to learn, lamad, indicating that teaching and learning are linked. Again, it doesn't matter what other language you're looking at. Teaching and learning, it's two totally different words. In Hebrew, every single word is literally like a world unto itself. Teaching and learning are intricately linked with the root of lamed. The heart. The letter is linked specifically to the heart, lev, which begins with lamed. And strength. And gematria, the numerical value of the letters. And gematria, which is the numeric value of the letters, meaning Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, all the way up, Yud is 10, Kaf is 20, Lamed's 30, Mem is 40, all the way up to Taf, which is 400. And gematria Lamed is 30, a number associated with full strength and maturity. An example of this is the age in which the Levites, Shevet Levi, I'm part of Shevet Levi, but I'm not a Levi, I'm a Kohen, which the Levium served in the temple. It started at age 30. We're going to talk about that. And again, you have to understand, in every lecture that we're going to do, there's going to be one basic emphasis, right? For the Mem, the emphasis was on the gematria, 40, because 40 occurs so many times in the Torah. Also with the Yud. The Yud, the emphasis was partly on the size of the letter. It's the smallest letter, so that obviously means something. But specifically, that Yud corresponds to 10. 10, clearly, all over the Torah, we can see 10. 10 plagues, 10 fingers and hands, 10 commandments, 10 utterances the world was given. So I'm thinking, Lamed, 30. Again, it's going to be very hard to find a lot of the gematria stuff. That like the emphasis on the lecture is going to have to be on something else. Found a lot of things for 30. We'll talk about that later. Basically, the crux of the Lamed is that learning and teaching are directly derived from this particular word and letter. So that will probably be the crux of the lecture. But there's a lot of things with the gematria of Lamed, which is 30. Okay. Let's talk about the linguistic function. It's a preposition. As a prefix, it can function as a preposition meaning two or four, like I said. For example, ledaber. Daber means speak. Ledaber means to speak. A verb infinitive. It can be attached to the verb root to indicate the infinitive mood. And where you'll see a lamed in Israel is anywhere you're driving, you'll see, like a student driver, there's someone that's in driver's ed, they have a lamed on top of the car. There's a little blue sign that the driving instructor puts on the top that has a lamed on it. Why? Lamed means to learn. They're learning. They're driving students that are learning how to drive, hopefully drive well. Now, let's start with what I said before. Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelik le'olam haba. I would say of any of the prefix liz that we have, this is the most misunderstood. Why? Because it is always translated wrong. And I don't understand why. I mean, when I did this lecture, I saw, literally the biggest rabbis ever also translated it as all of Israel, yesh lehem, meaning they all have, a chelik, meaning a portion, le'olam haba. But they all said le'olam haba is in olam haba, like in the next world. Meaning it's often translated, or mistranslated, as all of Israel, they all have a portion in olam haba. And that's unequivocally not true. Because li does not mean in. You could go back. It's an entire lecture. It was a mind-blowing lecture. And the most mind-blowing part is that it's like a game of telephone. You're like 6 years old, and you're playing a game of telephone. And it starts out like, Janie got new shoes. And by the end, it's like, Johnny has a dirty diaper. Because everyone just intentionally, I don't know how this, integral part of, especially Pirkei Avos, has always been translated incorrectly. This actually means all of Israel, they all have a portion to the next world. Meaning, I buy a plane ticket. I have a plane ticket to Boston, where I grew up. So I have a plane ticket in my pocket to Boston. How do I get to Boston? I have to go to the airport and actually get on the plane. But I have the ticket. I have the capacity to get to Boston. I have to just do stuff first to get on the plane to get to Boston. I'm not already in Boston, which is how it's often mistranslated. It's not a guarantee that I'm going to get to, I'm going to be in Boston, which is, for some reason, how this is translated. All of Israel has a portion to the next world. You all have a ticket as Jews to the next world. Whether you get to the airport and, pass through security and do that last step, which is show them the ticket and you put it through the scanner, that's up to you. You want to not keep Shabbos, you want to not keep kosher, you want to, disregard the holidays. Okay, your ticket to the next world will remain that. It will remain just a ticket. You will not be getting on that plane. It boggles the mind, and you'll see the shock that I have that for some reason this such a famous passage is often mistranslated. But you'll see what's the lamed. Why am I starting with this? Because the le is very, very important. It means to or for. All of Israel has a chelik, has a portion to the next world. You were all born with a lottery ticket in your pocket. This lottery ticket is cashed in when you leave this world and you've lived a Torah lifestyle. What Hashem wants mattered more to you than what you want. You might have wanted to go hiking with your friends Saturday afternoon at 2:30. You might have wanted to watch that football game Saturday afternoon at 3:30. But Hashem said otherwise. And that is like your North Star. That's your moral compass. Is what Hashem wants, I want. So people like this, they have a chelik to the next world. The Nefesh Chaim says something beautiful. He says, in reality, the world to come is generated by a person's actual actions, like I just said, whereby he extends, adds to, and rectifies his own portion through his own deeds. Therefore, Chazal say that each individual Jew has a portion of holiness, light, and shining to the next world. Meaning, even right now, you have a link, you have a connection to the next world. Every mitzvah that you do, every second of Torah that you learn, every drop of tzedakah that you give, you are literally building yourself a palace. Think of it that way. Think of it, you're trying to build something. You continue to add bricks and bricks and bricks to, God willing, this just luxurious palace that you're making for yourself in the next world. If you're not doing anything connected to Judaism, if all Judaism means to you is, what do you mean? I wear a Jewish star. I go to, Times Square once a year and I wave an Israeli flag. I'm just as good a Jew as, the biggest rabbi in Israel. You're not building anything. You're not cashing in your ticket to Olam Haba. It's very important. Very important. It's a good way to start this lecture. Now, the uniqueness of the lamed. You'll see every letter. If you just stare at the letters, they're all interesting. Hebrew's a very interesting language. One letter clearly stands out. I'm literally looking, the site that I got this from, I don't know why I copied the picture, but I'm actually looking at it right now. So I'm looking at all the letters. The lamed literally towers. The lamed's like Shaquille O'Neal going to Korea. Everyone in Korea is like 5'3". And the lamed's like Shaquille O'Neal walking around, downtown Seoul. Just, this lamed is just, it's a big, big letter. It's the tallest letter. Again, there's something unique about every letter. Some are more obvious than the others. The lamed, clear, like the yud is very obvious. It's a tiny little dot. It's the tiniest letter. It's the only letter suspended in the air. Lamed's also very unusual because it's huge. The letter lamed's unique in Hebrew since it's the tallest letter. It's the only letter that rises above the baseline. Right, here's the baseline. Every letter, goes basically from here to the bottom. The yud goes from here, suspends in the air. The lamed goes above the baseline. It's the only letter that goes above the baseline. So clearly that's important. I mean, it doesn't take a Rashi to understand, oh my God, the lamed is very, very tall. It's huge. So what do we say? What's lamed? Aspirations, looking to the heavens. Since lamed towers over all the other letters from its central position, it is said to represent the Melech HaMelechim, the King of Kings, right? Melech has a lamed in its middle. This idea is supported by the idea that the preceding letter stands for Kisei HaKavod, the throne of glory, and the following letter stands for Malchus, kingdom. The sages also point out that the three central letters can spell Melech, meaning king. Melech is literally the order of Kaf, Lamed, Mem, backwards, right? We have AlephBeis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem. But how do you spell Melech? Mem, Lamed, Kaf. Backwards. The 12th, the design of lamed is two letters merged together. We'll talk about this. It's a vav and a kaf, right? What's the gematria of vav? 6. What's the gematria of kaf? 20. So what does the lamed have within it, right? The lamed is the tallest letter. So clearly something that's the tallest, it has, just if you look at the letters, it's the closest to Hashem. Clearly something will be connected with the lamed and Hashem. Well, what is it? The lamed itself. Like we said, Yud's the only letter, we said this yesterday. Yud is the only letter that is not comprised of other Hebrew letters. Every other Hebrew letter is multiple Hebrew letters together to form the particular letter. So a lamed is a vav and a kaf. Vav is 6, kaf is 20, 6 and 20 is 26, which is the gematria of the name of Hashem. Honestly, these Hebrew lectures are just, I can't believe how much unbelievable information there is out there. I mean, it is a total, yesterday I said, I don't want to say that it's fun, because, there's no word for fun in the Hebrew, in the actual ancient Hebrew language, maybe in modern Hebrew. It's a simcha. It's joy. It's joyfulness to see just the absolute divinity and the spirituality and the uniqueness of every single one of the letters. I mean, it's mind-blowing. So lamed itself, it's the tallest letter, it's the closest to Hashem, and the gematria of the two letters that literally comprise the aleph, a vav and a kaf, is 26, which of course is the yud, hey, vav, and hey gematria, 26. Rabbi Nachman of Breslev explains that the lamed represents lower wisdom, and the yud represents higher wisdom. It's very interesting. The letter lamed is the tallest letter in the alphabet. It is a tower soaring in the air that aspires to reach infinity. Yet its feet are on the ground. That's interesting. The lamed, it soars to the heavens, but its feet are on the ground. The yud is the smallest letter, but it's suspended. It's the only letter that's feet don't reach the ground. Again, the meaning of lamed, the letter itself, lamed, comes from the root lamad, meaning to learn or to teach. Teaching and learning. Lamed is the root of the Hebrew word lamad, which is to learn. Milamed is to teach. Melamed is the teacher. The letter's tall shape, rising above others, symbolizes the ultimate authority of the Torah and the goal of ascending spiritually through knowledge. Judaism is the only entity in the world where it is a crime to be ignorant. It is a crime to be an Am Haaretz. It is a crime to not know and to not care and to not delve into why Hashem created you. Why do you have all these wonderful traits and harmful weaknesses and hindrances? It's a crime. It's a crime to think that the world is created randomly. It's a crime to not care why you specifically look like this, why you were born to specific parents, in a specific country, at a specific time. Oh, I wish I lived in the 20s. Oh, I wish I lived, 20 years. No, you live exactly right now, in this place, you're born in this place to these parents for a specific reason. It is a crime. It is a crime to be ignorant. It's a crime to not care in Judaism. Where do we see knowledge? And now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the rules that I am teaching you. Asher anochi milamed eschem. V'ata Yisrael shema el hachukim v'el hamishpatim asher anochi milamed eschem. The source of all learning, milamed, is the Torah itself. If you're Jewish out there and you think, oh, I'm going to go to school to learn psychology. I can't wait to go to this lecture from. You're wasting your entire life. You're wasting all your time. If you think you're going to find spiritual, the fact that you see a lot of these Israeli soldiers, these secular Israeli soldiers. Israeli soldiers, typically, they do like a big trip after army service. They go to like Sri Lanka. Most of them go to Asia. Now South America is getting very, very popular. And a lot of them come back like more religious because they think they're going to find this like spiritual like Shangri-La and all these other places. And then typically what happens is they go to the places where only Israelis are. They'll go to like a Chabad or like a little like Airbnb that like an Israeli, expat is hosting Israelis. And they realize, well, I came all the way to India to realize that these people worship a cow, which is literally true. They worship a cow. If you think you're going to find anything outside of the realm of the Torah, this pasuk just destroys that. This is what Hashem says. V'ata Yisrael, shema el hachukim v'el hamishpatim, asher anochi melamed eschem. And now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the rules that I am teaching you today. What does Rabbi Akiva say? If we're going to talk about Torah learning, then we have to always talk about something about Rabbi Akiva. Why? Because Rabbi Akiva hit a level of wisdom that no one else in the history of the world has ever hit. So much so that Moshe Rabbeinu actually asked Hashem, why did you give the Torah through me? You should have given it through Rabbi Akiva. Why? What was Rabbi Akiva's, like superpower, even though it wasn't a superpower, it was just through hard work. There's something called tagim, crowns. Certain letters in the Torah, they have crowns on them. If you just ever look at a Torah, you should get the chills. It just, Baruch Hashem, I get to see the Torah a lot because I'm a Kohen. So when you're a Kohen, typically there's not so many of you in whatever shul you're davening at. So on Mondays and Thursdays and on Shabbos, the Kohen gets the first aliyah. So, when I was davening, in Netanya for over 3 years, there were 3 Kohanim. So we sort of rotated. So usually once every 2 weeks, I'm getting an aliyah. And you look at inside the Torah and you see, someone literally wrote every single word, all the lines that they etched in. They wrote every single letter. And then you see these crowns on top of the Torah. So Rabbi Akiva could take every single crown and he would deduce like wagon loads of knowledge from each one. So what does Rabbi Akiva say about the Lamed? In the letters of Rabbi Akiva, the full spelling of the letter Lamed, which is Lamed, Mem, Daled, is read as short for the phrase, a heart that understands knowledge. Lev mevi'in da'as. The numerical value of this phrase is 608, which equals Lev, heart, times Chava, Eve. The heart of Eve. Why? What does Eve have to do with the heart? What does Eve have to do with knowledge? What does any of this have to do with Rabbi Akiva finding on this? And his commentary on the story of the Garden of Eden, of Gan Eden, the original episode of mankind, where everything went, unfortunately, sour. It's a good life lesson here. What did Hashem tell Adam? You can do anything you want. You just can't eat from this one tree. What did Adam end up doing? He ate from that one tree. It's like the equivalent, you got left like a castle. You never knew you had this Scottish like great uncle, and he left you a castle in Scotland. And he says, okay, I left you this 500 room castle, but room 472 you can't open. You can't go into. It's locked. You can never go in there. Are you ever going to enjoy that 500 room castle? Or every single time you're on the 4th floor, you're going to walk by that stupid great uncle? Why, and at some point you're going to break into that room. You're going to find out that it's haunted. You're going to die. And basically exactly what happened in the Garden of Eden. We have to understand, Adam was literally in paradise. He had one thing that he couldn't do. Hashem gave him only one you can't do. It's like a child. You tell, you can have any candy you want in the closet, but you just can't have this one candy. The kid's devastated. This is exactly what happened. So what do the Ibn Ezra say? The Ibn Ezra states that Adam is the secret of the brain, but Chava, Eve, is the secret of the heart, and the snake is the secret of the liver. In Kabbalah, these fundamental correspondences are developed and explained in depth. Adam and Eve, male and female, are the prototype spiritual forces of giving and receiving, right? I mean, like chords have a male end and a female end, right? Giving and receiving, just the way that we're shaped, giving and receiving. The marital union and gift of male to female relates to the secret knowledge. And what does it say? I did a whole lecture on this. Adam yada es Chava. Adam knew his wife. The first union in world history, usually in the Torah it says so-and-so came to so-and-so, right? Yehuda, he's in the desert, he sees Tamar, he thinks she's a prostitute, and Yehuda comes to Tamar. But the first union in world history, Adam yada es Chava. Did Bill Clinton say, what does yada mean? Knew. Adam knew his wife. I mean, I never knew that knowledge was like an integral part of male-female relations. I mean, did Bill Clinton say, I did not have knowledgeable relations with that woman? What does knowledge have to do with this? And Adam knew his wife, Eve. Adam yada es Chava. For this reason, Adam and Chava are often seen to represent teacher and pupil. That's what it has to represent. That's why we're talking about today in relation to the Lamed. The teacher contracts his intellect into a point, to a yud, in order to convey his teaching to his student, whereas the student nullifies his previous levels of conception to become a fitting vessel for new wondrous teachings of his teacher. You ever been in a class where, like, the obnoxious kid, like, maybe read this book that you're learning in class once before, and whatever answer the teacher, like, before he can even get it out, Poseidon did, Teacher-student relationship is dubbed the Adam-Chava relationship. For this reason, Adam and Chava are often seen to represent teacher and pupil. In particular, the form of Lamed represents the aspiration of the truly devoted pupil to learn from the mouth of a truly devoted teacher. The literal meaning of the letter Lamed is to learn. I mean, does B, forget about like bumblebee, does B or C or D in English have an actual meaning? No. Every single Hebrew letter has its own meaning, its own shape, its own gematria. I mean, the seed of wisdom alluded to by the letter Yud descends from the brain, Adam, to impregnate the full consciousness of the heart, which is Chava. The heart aspires upwardly, right? She represents the Lev. Chava represents the Lev. What's the first letter of Lev? Lamed. What's the Lamed? The tallest letter. What's the tip of the Lamed? Always pointing upward. Everything is with the heart should go upward. The heart aspires upwardly to receive this point of insight from the brain. This is the secret of the form of the letter Lamed. The heart ascending in aspiration to conceive and comprehend the point of wisdom. The Yud, situated at the top of the Aleph. That's beautiful. Okay. Lamed. The goal of learning and teaching is heart knowledge. To infuse such beauty and wisdom and truth that it becomes you. You can't function any other way. Anything deviating from this beautiful Torah wisdom that you know is divine, you can't operate any other way. Moreover, since the Lamed is the only letter allowed to ascend above the other letters, the Lamed represents the prominence of learning and understanding to the Jewish heart. According to Jewish mysticism, the numerical value of the phrase Lev Mevein Da'as, right? Lamed, Mem, Daled. So Lev Mevein Da'as is the same as the gematria of the heart of Chava. We see a intrinsic connection between Chava, between Eve, and the letter Lamed, and learning and receiving and the heart. Okay, what did we say before? The Lamed's also what? Like a shepherd's stick, like a goad, right? You see the shepherds walking, they're never just walking, checking their iPhone. They're always walking with basically a Lamed. Learning in the Jewish tradition is not an end in itself, but should spur us on to action. We're not learning to get trophies, or to win a math exam. We're learning to do. What does it say? If you're learning, you get the credit for learning. But if you're learning to teach, Hashem will help you learn and teach. But if you're learning to learn, to teach, and to do, you just have such shefa, such beautiful bracha and assistance flowing from Hashem. When I'm putting these lectures together, I'm learning just an unbelievable amount of Torah. But I'm learning it so that I can, God willing, impart an unbelievable amount of Torah. So that what? So that all of us, you and me, are, I rewatch all my episodes to do what? So that we can do. They're supposed to spur us on to action. You can be the biggest rabbi in the world and act very terribly. What did all your Torah learning get you? Nothing. The goal is to learn. The Ramban says that the number one mitzvah in the Torah, it's the only mitzvah in the Torah, is to help your fellow Jews earn mitzvahs, meaning spreading the light, teaching the Torah, showing them how to do mitzvahs, encouraging them to, better themselves and to grow. Study is not the ultimate goal. The deeds are the ultimate goal. Actually, there's a famous, in the Gemara between Rabbi Akiva and I think Rabbi Tarfon. There's a machlokes, there's a debate. What's more important, the learning or the doing? Rabbi Akiva says the learning. I believe it's either Rabbi Tarfon or Rabbi Yossi Aglili. I think it's Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon says the doing, and then the sages sort of merge the two ideas together, and they say learning to doing. Learning in order to do is like the ikar of the Torah. Clearly, study is not the ultimate goal, rather the deeds. Rabbi Shmuel bar Rav Yossi says, that's why I just said before, one who studies Torah in order to teach is given the means to study and teach. One who studies Torah in order to do is given the means to study and to teach and to guard and to do. You can't just learn Judaism. People say, I love learning, Torah as an academic concept. It's not an academic concept. It is life. It's everything in life. It's life itself. It's an all-encompassing lifestyle. It's not physics. It's not geometry. It's life itself. In other words, a true Talmud student or learner is not one who is entirely bookish without deeds of righteousness that accompany his or her learning. This is echoed in the famous words of Shimon HaTzadik, who said that the world stands upon three things: upon Torah, upon avoda, and upon gimilos chasadim. Torah, worship, and good deeds. In light of this, we can see how the word lamed is connected with malmad, which is a goad to spur someone along to action. Like a wise shepherd, learning will both spur us on to good deeds and control our what? Our animal instincts. I mean, Hebrew is just the most unbelievable. What's goad? Malmad. But what do you notice with malmad? What does it have in it? Lamed. Malmad is the same letters as lamed. Goad. We're never supposed to say, you know what? I think I'm done learning for my lifetime. I think I've got it down pat. The biggest Rabbi Akiva hit a level of wisdom no one else is ever going to hit. If he was standing in front of us today and I was interviewing Rabbi, he would tell you, I have not even learned one drop of sand on the ocean that is the Torah. Okay. Lamad, right? In Hebrew, lamad, lamed, is the verb root to learn or to teach. Melamed is the noun for teacher. The words are closely connected, emphasizing the inseparable relationship between learning and teaching in Judaism. Meaning, the primitive root, lamad, means both to learn and to teach. In the Hebrew worldview, in the Jewish worldview, these concepts are two sides of the same coin. A teacher has not truly taught until the student has learned. And the process of learning is inextricably linked to teaching others. There's a very famous story in the Gemara of Rav Elazar ben Pedat. He had a student, Elazar ben Pedat. I think Rav Elazar ben Pedat. He would teach a student 400 times. He had like one student that could never really grasp the concept. So he would teach him 400 times, the same thing over and over 400 times. So one time he's teaching him, and all of a sudden, the student, after 400 times, said, I didn't get it. And he said, what happened today? I usually teach you 400 times, and you get it. He said, Rebbe, I had a feeling that someone was going to come in and ask you for, to go do something, and I was distracted. So he said, okay, fine, I'll teach it to you again. So he taught it to him another 400 times. A baskol comes down from Shemaim and says to this wonderful, patient, humble teacher, would you like 400 years added to your life? Or would you like that you and all of your generation make it to the world to come? Meaning you all get Olam Haba. And he said, I want me and my generation to all get Olam Haba. Meaning, very unselfish. I mean, if someone asked you, Baskol comes down and says, okay, so-and-so, you can get an extra 400 years of life. Or, you and all of your, friends at the lumber yard can get a gift. Most people are going to choose, not this rabbi. He said, I want that me and all of my generation will get the afterlife. And what do the Baskols say? Give them both. Give them both. You can never lose by being humble and by being generous. Why does it say that Job? Why was Job blessed? Why was Eov blessed? What does the Talmud say? Because Eov was generous with his money. You go to a restaurant, especially in Israel, these people aren't making any money. What's the extra? Okay, if you don't have so much money, beseder. But everyone in my family used to work for tips at some point in our life. So we happen to all be very generous tippers because we say to ourselves, like, what's the extra $3-4? Bill comes to 40, whatever it is. Just Be generous. The Talmud's very clear. Eov was blessed by God. He got more bracha than almost anyone in history. Okay, of course Hashem took it away at some point. That's the whole story of Eov. But he gave it back like in spades. Why? Because Eov is very generous. It's a good life lesson. Okay. What's a malmad, we said before? A cattle prod or a goad. What's it used for? To guide or to train the animals. This image symbolizes the way a teacher guides a student towards knowledge. The association with the shepherd's staff also represents guidance and authority. The malamed, right? Milamed, to teach. But a Hebrew teacher is called a malamed, right? In the Israel, teachers are called malameds. A malamed is a teacher or instructor. In biblical times, the term referred to a religious teacher. But during the Talmudic period, it was specifically used for a teacher of children. Melamed Tinikot. The community appointed a Melamed and established rules for the number of children he could teach and the process for appointing or dismissing him. Historically, a Melamed might also be a respected, learned man, and sometimes the term is used, ironically, to refer to someone incompetent. That's interesting. The term is pronounced milamed with the stress on the last syllable. The words shared roots, meaning lamad and milamed, again, highlight the share. This is if you get nothing else from the lecture. If you hear me repeat stuff in a lecture, it's because this is the ikar of the lecture. With the mem and with the yud, it was the gematria. With this lecture, the fact that lamad is the root of learning and teaching shows this beautiful, special, unique, and intricate connection and relationship between teacher and student. Also, the fact that it's the first letter of the word lave, both of the intentions have to be in tune. Okay, let's talk about the letter itself. The letter lamed, of course, like we said, is the tallest letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Since it stands taller than the other letters, it represents royalty, right? It is the middle letter of what? Melech. And again, it also represents Lev. Now, there's a very famous few pesukim in the book of Koheles, Ecclesiastes. And it actually was turned into a very famous song by the Birds. Byrds, the Birds. I'm not a big music guy, but the only music that I actually like is 1960s music. Basically up until like the mid-70s, anything after that, a few things in the 80s. Anything after that is, music in modern times is just unbelievable garbage. Can't thank Hashem enough for giving me like no love of music. It's a big help. But anyway, the Birds, right? To everything, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, right? So the Birds didn't invent that. That was actually from King Solomon, right? So what do we say? To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. We'll go through some of these because you'll see that there's something very interesting. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which was planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to cast away, a time to rend, a time to sow, time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time for love and a time for hate, a time for war and a time for peace. If you pay attention, you'll see that all the verbs in all of these phrases begin with the letter lamed, right? Eis laledes ve'eis lamus. Time to be born, a time to die. Eis laharog, time to kill. Ve'eis lirpo, a time to kill, a time to heal. All of these have a lamed, except for two. Every single one of these verbs that I use, time to rend, all of them have a letter lamed, except for two. What are the two? Sfod, rakod, mourn and dance, right? All these, time to seek, time to lose, all have lameds. Time to keep, time to cast away, all have lameds. Time to cast away stones, time to gather stones, lamed. A time to mourn, a time to dance. No lamed. Why? The sages understand from this that these two are different, right? They are both situations that remove a person from their learning. Again, everything with the lamed is learning. Meaning what? One of the two times that a Torah scholar needs to leave the Beis Midrash, needs to leave the learning in order to do two things. Mourning and dancing. What do we mean by this? Honestly, of all the things I think I found so far, this one is so powerful. This is just like a nuclear bomb. When I found this yesterday, I was so happy. Again, all I have to do is get out the text. I mean, it's not like I'm making this stuff up. If you just look at the text, you'll notice a lamed everywhere, except for these two. So then the next question, I mean, for any person with a brain, why don't these two have lameds? Well, what's a lamed? Learning. So these two, dancing and mourning, don't have a lamed. Why? And then you realize the genius of our sages. I mean, I would have sat here for a million years. I never would have been able to figure out why these two don't have a lamed. But of course, the Chazal can. What does Chazal say? They are both situations that remove a person from their learning. A funeral when one is mourning, and a wedding when one is dancing, which are both events that a person is obligated to go to according to Jewish tradition. I mean, gosh. I remember when Rav Kanievsky passed away, AlephBeis. He passed away Purim, I think either Purim or Shushan Purim, it was Purim, 2022. Because my wife was sick with cancer. I remember we were in Yerushalayim. We were gearing up for Shushan Purim. And I told her, you should really try to get a bracha from Rav Kanievsky. I'll go, get with someone in your family, go. We really, the situation was becoming more dire. And then literally the next day he passed away. I was frozen. I couldn't believe it. But then what did you see after that? You saw hundreds of thousands. They said between 600,000 and 900,000 people went to his funeral. You saw every single yeshiva stop learning, and they all went on the route of his, levaya. B'nai Brak was a sea of just yeshiva students. Where else do you see a sea of yeshiva students? Stopping their learning. One of their friends gets married. You don't say, "Oh, you're getting married next Tuesday? No, I've got a learning partner." No, you stop the learning, and you go again. Learning and not doing, learning and not wanting to engage in mitzvahs is not learning, which we talked about before. So the only two places in Koheles, in this beautiful song that was immortalized by the birds, the lamed doesn't appear in two places: mourning and dancing. Why? Because it's the only places where the lamed is batal. You're not learning. You're going and dancing with your friends. You're going and mourning, unfortunately. Just mic drop. Just awesome. Absolutely awesome. Okay. Like we said before, the lamed is what? It's a vav on the top, and a kaf, right? So a kaf is 20 and a vav is 6, so 26, right? So the yud, the hey, and the vav, and the hey is also 26. So the lamed itself has in it the divine aspects of Hashem's four-letter, the ineffable name, the Shema Mefarish. The letter's design is a combination of vav and kaf. represent the connection between the divine and the human. The vav symbolizes a descent from the higher spiritual realm to the earthly plane. It's like a tunnel. While the kaf represents the earthly vessel that can be filled with wisdom. What's a kaf? A kaf looks like a pregnant woman's stomach. It can be filled with wisdom. It's like a reverse C. Now, let's talk about what's the gematria of Lamed 30. Right? Yod is 10, Kuf is 20, Lamed is 30, Vav is 40, Nun is 50, and so on. Let's talk about 30. Since Lamed is central and raised above all letters, it represents the Yud, the Hey, and the Vav, and the Hey, the King of Kings. Moreover, the number 30 is the same value as what? Yehuda. Where does the Mashiach come from? Yehuda. Where did King David come from? Yehuda. Where did King Solomon come from? Yehuda. Where did Chizkiyahu, Hezekiah come from? Yehuda. Interesting. Talk about the Lamed. It's the tallest of the letters. It towers above. The king towers above the rest of the population. And the Lamed, coincidentally, has the exact same gematria as Yehuda, where Mashiach comes from. And Yehuda is what? The king of the brothers, the king of the tribes. Yehuda is a lion's whelp. This is Yaakov's bracha at the end of his life. Yehuda is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion. And as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Yehuda. Yehuda is the king. Yehuda has a gematria of 30. Lamed is a gematria of 30. Yehuda, his very name, his very essence, his kingship. 30 is the gematria of Lamed, the one Hebrew letter that rises above all the rest. I mean, again, if you're just tuning in the middle, which would be very bizarre, the goal of this entire 23-part series is to show literally mind-blowing divine nature and aspect of the Hebrew letters. And if you can't, even just in each individual lecture, you should say, okay, Eliakim, that was actually pretty interesting. Watch the rest of them. I mean, we're on number 4, and I'm already worn out from all it's just like one bomb after another. And every time I think that I'm done, I say, you know what, let me try to find one more. And it's like 8 more things. Just, Yehuda we know that Yehuda is the king. Yehuda is gematria 30. Lamed is really like the king of the letters, right? It's the only one raised up. It's like towers above the rest of the letters. Kingship. What else is 30 associated with? 30 is associated with what? Maturity, strength, and a readiness for spiritual tasks. When did the Levium, the Levites, when did they start carrying the Mishkan's vessels? The Kalim of the Mishkan tabernacle's vessels? 30. The number 30 also symbolizes the potential for bringing spiritual wisdom into the world through teaching and learning. We have what? The 3 sons of Levi, right? What does it say in the Torah? Again, because when you want to find stuff, you have to just go to the source. You have to go to the Torah. Where do we see 30 in the Torah? The 3 sons of Levi and their descendants were what? Koheles, Gershon, Merari. They were given responsibility for the service in the tent of the meeting, in the Mishkan, as priests. This service began at the age of 30. As Levium. This service began at the age of 30. It was their job to bring the people and Hashem closer together, which is why the Levium were not given a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. Me, a part of Shevet Levi, we do not have a part of Eretz Yisrael. We have 48 cities that we can live in. The 42 Ir Levium and the 6 Ir Miklats, where the unintentional murderers went to? Why did the unintentional murderers go to cities where the Levium are? Because we are supposed to be the ones that connect Am Yisrael to Hashem. Our entire task is spiritual, which is why we don't work. People gave us part of their crops. They gave us part of their meister. They gave us part of their money. Our entire job was to uplift the nation spiritually. What does it say in Bamidbar? Hashem spoke unto Moshe and unto Aaron, saying, take the sum of the sons of Koheles among the sons of Levi, after their families by the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward until 50 years old, all that enter into the host to do work in the tabernacle of the congregation. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, take the sum of the sons of Gershon throughout the houses of their fathers by their families. From 30 years old and upward until 50, shalt thou number them, all that enter to perform the service, to do work in the tabernacle of the congregation. As for the sons of Merari, thou shalt number them after their families by the house of their fathers, from 30 years until 50 years old. 3 times. All the sons from 30 years old. Lamed is gematria, 30. You see that something is unique about entering into the service of Hashem, being mature enough, being ready enough, having the cognizance and the awareness and the intentions. Something about 30 is very unique and specific and intentional. The Levium began their service of Hashem at the age of 30. This age suggests that they were transitioning from like secular to divine service. They were taking on work with eternal ramifications. And when did that start? Age 30. The purpose of the Jewish people's travels was to transform the desert, Bamidbar, into a garden, to bring godliness to a desolate place. By carrying the Holy Ark, and within it the Torah, each and every one of the Jews' encampments became not only a spiritual, but a literal garden. This became a lesson and a guidepost for the Jewish people and their future exiles. God was informing them, throughout history, you will have to travel. You will trek from one country to another. But wherever you go, you must take the Ark of God with you, meaning we never give up the Torah. This power to begin transforming the world in earnest begins when we turn 30. Up until that point, we are in training. The Midrash Shmuel states that one has the ability to guide and influence others for good at the age of 30. Until then, he is simply laying the foundation. Wow. Okay. What else do we see 30? Fascinating. When did Yosef begin to rule over Egypt? I know you're thinking, okay, probably 30? Yeah. Bereshis 41:46. And Yosef was 30 years old when he stood before Paro, the king of Egypt. And Yosef went out from the presence of Paro and went throughout all the land of Egypt as the viceroy. But in essence, Yosef controlled Egypt. And when did he start controlling Egypt? Again, we don't need Rashis. We love Rashi, but the Torah is very explicit. Yosef was 30 years old when he stood before Paro. Yosef became the king of Mitzrayim at age 30. How old was David HaMelech when he began to reign? Shmuel 5:4. Book of Samuel 5:4. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 40 years. We have 2 Mashiachs, right? We have Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. When did Yosef and David become kings? Yosef at 30, David at 30. Gosh. What a privilege to be able to just learn Torah and just do these lectures. Baruch Hashem. This is just, that's got to be mind-blowing. Yosef was 30 years old when he began to reign. David was 30 years old when he began to reign. We have 2 Mashiachs. First comes Mashiach ben Yosef, right? Mashiach ben Yosef is likened to what? To the ox. Who does the ox destroy? The other ox. Who's the other ox? Esav. Who's David HaMelech likened to? The chamor, the donkey. Not in a negative way. Because David HaMelech, with his piety and his learning and his love of Avas Yisrael, the love of his fellow Jews, he was like a donkey. What can you put on a donkey? A big burden. You could just load the donkey up. Nothing was too hard for David HaMelech. When did David HaMelech become the king? At 30. Who is David HaMelech? Tasked with destroying. Donkey describes donkey. Who else is called a donkey? Yishmael, the Bnei Yishmael. Unbelievable. Yosef was 30 years old when he stood before Paro, became the king of Egypt. David was 30 years old when he began to reign. Don't say 30 years and a month, 30 years and 2 days, 30 years old. That's what the Torah says, 30 years old. You're linking literally the two Mashiachs with the Lamed. How about other places where we see 30? If the ox gores a manservant or a maidservant, he, the owner, shall give unto their master 30 shekels of silver. This is in Shemos 31:32. How about in Bamidbar? When all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, they mourned for Aaron for 30 days, even all the house of Israel. The entire house of Israel mourned Aaron for 30 days. We'll talk about that in a minute with Shloshim. It's called Shloshim. Where else? How about in Yonah? We just read Yonah on Yom Kippur, right? The king of Nineveh was told that Hashem would destroy Nineveh in how many more days? 30. What did the king of Nineveh do? They repented. The entire nation put on sackcloth and they fasted and they prayed. But what flipped the decree? For all the people out there that don't understand that actions speak louder than words. Fasting is great for atonement. But if you're going to go back to your same things, it means nothing. Prayer is also very good. Putting on sackcloth is great. Putting, ashes. All things but what's the number one thing that changes your mazel, that changes your predicament, that changes your potential punishment? It said that Hashem saw their deeds. Hashem saw. They didn't just put on the sackcloth. They didn't just daven. They didn't just put on the ashes. They changed their behavior. They repented. They became new people. That was their transition. When are we supposed to start learning about new holidays? 30 days before, right? What does it say in Brachos 58a in the Talmud? The laws of Pesach are discussed and expounded 30 days before Pesach. Meaning, literally, and it's like a minhag for a lot of the Hasidic, and even like the yeshivish groups. Basically, on Purim, they will start learning about Pesach, because Pesach is exactly 30 days from Purim. Rabbi said to Rav Nachman, let us consider, between Purim and Pesach, there are exactly 30 days. And from Purim, we start to lecture on the laws of Pesach. People must begin to inquire into the laws of Pesach 30 days before the actual festival. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel said, okay, fair. Thus, when we understand that Purim begins a time of transition, right? It's transitioning. We said with the Levium. They transition from what? The secular, not being able to, have such an influence on the surroundings, to what? To the divine. Being able to start influencing the surroundings. On Purim itself begins the transition to what? To Cherus, to freedom of Pesach. It's a time for us to reconcile ourselves as Jews, sort of just lost in this midst of revelry and whatever, to, oh my gosh, we need to start transitioning to being what? Free Jews. That's what Pesach is. That's why we lean to the left. But we do everything that day to commemorate our freedom, right? When do we start doing tshuva before Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Chodesh Elul. How many days from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Rosh Hashanah, exactly 30 days. During the month of Elul, the final month of the Hebrew calendar, people take on various forms of ritual practices. Special prayers, Tehillim, we sound the shofar, we study material related to tshuva, we reconcile with family and friends. We have this 30-day period to immerse ourselves in trying to start becoming changed people. So that we come out from Rosh Hashanah, we come out after Shmini Atzeres, flying. And then what do? We have a whole month of Mar Cheshvan that we're in right now, where there's no holidays. It's the only month of the year that there's no holidays. And we try to capture this unbelievable tshuva that we did during Elul. And it's just soaring higher and higher from Rosh Hashanah all the way up to Shmini Atzeres, when it's just the holiday of us and Hashem. You have to go back and watch that lecture. That it's the most special day of the year, Shmini Atzeres. Unequivocally, hands down, the most special day of the year. But where does it start? That 30-day period of Elul to Rosh Hashanah. The Avudraham tells us that we recite Shechianu at the advent of every festival. Right? Pesach, we make Shechianu. Shavuos, make Shechianu. Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot. But the cycle must be more than 30 days. Why don't we make Shechianu on Rosh Chodesh? Because the cycle must be more than 30 days. Hence, we neither recite Shechianu on the festival of the new moon or on Shabbos, which comes every week. The reason he gives is compelling. If a festival appears again within a 30-day period, its advent is not anxiously anticipated. It becomes part of the natural rhythm of life, and it does not engender the excitement necessary for Shechianu. This suggests that we say Shechianu at a time of transition from the mundane to something holy. How about a mezuzah? The reason that a regular tenant does not affix his mezuzah for the first 30 days is due to the temporary or transitional nature of his residence. One who signs a lease for a longer period has committed to a more permanent residency. It says in the Gemara, in Menachos, he who stays at an inn in the land of Israel, or who rents a house outside the land of Israel, is for the first 30 days exempt from mezuzah. After 30 days, it's a new transition. 30 is a transitional period. How about matzah? Matzah is the equivalent of the man, right? The man that we had in the desert. And that it broadcast the hand of Hashem, the Yad Hashem. Hashem took us out from Mitzrayim with a what? Outstretched arm and a mighty hand. The Torah tells us that our ancestors ate man for 40 years. The sages asked how this might be true if they ate matzah for the first 30 days of their journey. And they explained that our ancestors enjoyed the matzah as much as they did the man. Why? Because both contained a out-of-this-world quality. The Gemara says, a borrowed coat for the first 30 days is exempt from tzitzis. Says the Gemara in Makos, if one is lending his friend money without specifying the date for repayment, he cannot demand repayment for at least 30 days. Again, 30, there's something cyclical. There's something transformational about 30. Brachos, it says, one who sees a friend after a lapse of 30 days says, blessed is he who has kept us alive and preserved us and brought us to this season. Again, 30. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel ruled any human child that survived for 30 days cannot be regarded as a miscarriage. Again, 30, all over. Now, if you go to Bereshis 27:30, we like to do textual oddities when we do these Hebrew letters. Anytime where we see a big yud, a small yud, a big lamed, what's the textual oddity that we have with the lamed? If you go to Bereshis 27:30, you'll see that it has an unusual tag, meaning the tagim, the crowns. The tagim are usually, it literally looks like a crown. But this one's different. What's the context of this? As soon as Yaakov finished blessing as soon as Yitzchak finished blessing Yaakov, the tag on the lamed is in the word kila. Vahi kasher kila Yitzchak levarech es Yaakov. The Kila means finished. It has a droopy crown on the lamed. You can look it up. It's very unusual. Why do we have this droopy crown? The sages suggest that this extra embellishment on the lamed points to the blessing that Hashem had just given Yaakov, as if it were descending upon him from the heaven. It's like the crown melted a little bit. It's just so mind-blowing. The crown literally looks like you take an ice cream and you just see it sort of droop, right? This is basically what it's saying. The blessing that Hashem had just given to Yaakov, as if it were descending upon him from heaven. Like the blessing was coming at that exact moment and weighing on his crown. Fascinating. Okay. The word Yisrael begins with the smallest letter and ends with the largest letter. Yod and Lamed. Yisrael. Right? Suggesting Israel's dependence upon God. In fact, in Shemos 19:5, the scribes write a deliberately oversized Lamed and a deliberately undersized Yod right next to one another. What's the context here? V'hisem li, Lamed Yod, li, meaning to me, Segula mikol ha'amim. What is Hashem saying to the Jewish people? You shall be to me a treasure among all peoples, meaning we are unique and we are special. For any particular reason, yes, we're the only ones that accepted the Torah. Hashem offered the Torah to every single nation on earth, and all 70 nations declined. B'nai Esav, what's in it? You can't murder. We don't want it. B'nai Yishmael, what's in it? You can't steal. We don't want it. Every other nation had an excuse, and what do the Jewish people say? Na'asa v'nishma. We'll do it, Hashem, and then we'll figure out whatever you're... If you're offering it to us, good enough for us. Amazing. We love it. So we are now called what? An Am Segula. V'hisem li. Big Lamed, which is already big, and a small Yud, which is already small. The sages teach that Israel is an Am Segula. To me, to Hashem, a treasured people, when we keep the mitzvahs of the Torah by acknowledging his greatness and Israel's smallness. The big Lamed is Hashem, right? Lamed is what? Vav, Kuf, 26. So the Lamed is even bigger than it usually is. And the Yud, which represents the small, diminutive Jewish people, is even smaller. Why? When we humble ourselves and get rid of our arrogance and our cockiness, and we know it all. There's nothing more you can teach me. And we just become what? Become vessels for that Lamed to just do exactly what he did with Yaakov and just melt that crown. Just blessing is just pouring on our heads. But we have to be vessels to receive it. And how do you become a vessel to receive it? You have to engage in the Torah. There's one thing that separates us from the rest of the world. We're not taller than other people. We're not better looking than other people. We're not, anything different than other people. But we have the Torah and nobody else does. That's it. That literally is it. Okay. The juxtaposition of the big Lamed and the small Yod conveys the message that Israel becomes Hashem's treasured possession by acknowledging Hashem's greatness and our own smallness. This unique lettering, Li, big Lamed, small Yod, illustrates the ideal relationship of a small, humble servant and a big King of Kings, meaning Hashem. There's another oversized Lamed. But wait, there's more. Devarim 29:28, another oversized Lamed. V'yashlichem el eretz acheres. This reads, and he cast them into another land. The Jewish sages note that this oversized Lamed suggests that Israel's ejection from the land would be used by Hashem to greatly teach them as a people about the greatness of Hashem. And at the end of days, we'll see the greatness even more. When what? When Hashem gathers us back in. I mean, what really shows Hashem's might? Spreading an already small people that everyone hates, like to all corners of the globe? Or gathering these small people that everybody hates from all corners of the globe back to the land that he promised the Jewish people in the year 2448. We're now in the year 5786. So it's 3,337 and a half years ago that we got the Torah. That's our bond to Hashem. That's the small yod and the big lamed. Now, getting back to this other oversized lamed. And he cast them into another land. The large lamed points to a deeper lesson about the relationship between God and Israel, even in punishment. God is the great teacher. The letter lamed is the tallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet and associated with teaching. By making the lamed oversized in the verse about exile, the sages suggest that going into gullus, into exile, was not merely a punishment, but a great teaching experience and lesson for the Jewish people. The King of Kings. The lamed is also associated with royalty, right? It's the middle letter of melech, king. Its towering position in the alphabet and its deliberate enlargement in the Torah, in this particular pasuk, emphasize Hashem's supreme authority, reminding Israel of his sovereignty, even when we are in distress and in a far-off land. Another interpretation is that due to the large lamed, it implies that Hashem even remains with Israel, is still our towering king, even in consolation, even when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed and we're being marched off to Rome, Hashem is still that large lamed. Okay, now, how about the letter's formation in the Torah? I know this just from drawing the lamed. I mean, it's nerve-wracking, by the way. He basically outlines the letter, and then you're just like bubbling it in like like an SAT bubble with a number 2 pencil. But it's not a number 2 pencil. And if you mess up, if 2 letters in the Torah are touching together, the Torah is literally useless. I mean, you can like put it in a backpack. It's worthless. Meaning what? All the Jews are compared to like the letters. If one Jew is not pulling his weight, we are, as a collective nation, we're flawed. We're faulty. We're chaser. Chaser means missing in Hebrew. So drawing this letter lamed was, after choosing the biggest letter, because I thought it'd be the biggest mitzvah, as I'm like bubbling it in, I'm thinking, gosh, I should have chosen the yud. It would have been a lot easier. It's nerve-wracking knowing that you could destroy a whole Torah, chas v'shalom. And the scribal tradition for writing a Torah scroll, the lamed's form is precise and specified. It's comprised of 2 letters, like we said, kaf and vav. The body of the letter is a kaf, kafufa, written on its baseline. A vav is then placed on top, with its point touching the upper left corner of the kaf. The upward stroke is the only letter in the Hebrew alphabet to extend above the top line of the text, making it instantly recognizable. The rules for its construction include specific measurements, such as the kaf being 3 kulmusim, quill widths, high, and the vav being another 3, making the total height 6 kulmusim. Scribes must ensure enough space is left above the line of the text so that the lamed can be written to its full correct height. Now, we talked about 30 before. Probably the most noticeable 30. And we talked about Aaron a Kohen. What does it say? That the nation mourned Aaron for 30 days. It's called Shloshim. Okay? When chas v'shalom a parent dies, it's the only time that you mourn for a year. If a spouse dies or a sibling dies or chas v'shalom a child dies, you mourn for 30 days. Again, also shloshim. But for a parent, you mourn for a whole year. There's 7 days of Shiva, then there's the shloshim, 30 days, and then the whole year. So there's basically 3 components of the full Shiva period. What are the differences between shloshim and the Shiva? What's Shiva? Sheva, right? Shiva is 7, Shiva is 7 days. Again, anything that sounds similar in Hebrew, you can bet your bottom dollar that it's similar. Shiva. How many days is Shiva? Well, it sounds like Sheva. So you're right. It is 7 days. What restrictions are lifted from the Shiva to the Shloshim? Mourners are no longer confined to the home. They can change out of their clothing. They can now greet people. They can now sit in regular chairs. They can now wear leather shoes. They can now go back to work. They can now use cosmetics and lotions and oils and perfume. They can study Torah again. It's a big one. They can resume marital relations. And they can attend a bris, pidyon haben, bar mitzvah, or a siyum. But you can't remain at the meal. What restrictions carry over? Can't wear freshly laundered clothing. Still can't take luxurious baths or showers. You still can't take a haircut or shave or cut nails. You can't listen to music. You can go to the wedding hall with a close relative or friend to say Mazal Tov before the meal is served. Can't be there for the meal. You should avoid activities that are not in the spirit of mourning. Shouldn't buy a new home. Shouldn't decorate, renovate, purchase new furniture. Can't marry during Shloshim. All these things. So again, Shloshim, it's a known entity in the Jewish world. Well, what's Shloshim? Shloshim is 30. Well, what's 30? 30 is the Lamed. Again, the Lamed is just, unbelievable. So how do we end? Let's end. Lamed means to learn and to teach. Found in the daily prayers with the phrase, Lilmod ulalamed. But the word Lamed, the commandment to teach, is not directed merely towards school teachers. It is a directive for every individual. Every person can influence his or her friends or students, and every parent has the obligation to teach his or her children the knowledge of God, good deeds, and ethics. Why did it say in the Torah that Abraham was so beloved to Hashem? For no other reason than what? Hashem knew that Abraham would teach the wisdom of God, the Torah, to his descendants after him. He loved Abraham most because he knew he would be a teacher, the first link of the chain. The Torah tells us, you shall teach your children and talk to them about these things. The Rambam informs us that this passage is the premise for the mitzvah of Torah study. That through the commandment to teach our children, we know of our obligation to study the Torah. How can you have the mitzvah to teach your children Torah if you don't know Torah yourself? How can we teach our children the Torah if we haven't learned it ourselves? This is the Rambam says is the mitzvah. It's an obligation. Mitzvah does not mean good deed. It means commandment. We are commanded to learn the Torah of Hashem. When you go to a new job, you are commanded to learn the company policy. When you start a new class, you are commanded to learn the syllabus. So too with life, we are commanded to learn the Torah. Lamad, the Lamed. We can all ask a simple question. Why do we have to learn about this most essential commandment indirectly? If Hashem wanted to tell us that we have to learn Torah, why isn't it just specifically said, all of you need to learn Torah? Why this roundabout way? Again, you shall teach your children and talk to them about these things. The mitzvahs. The context here is the mitzvahs. Why not just say, you have a mitzvah to learn the Torah? Like you have a mitzvah to not eat lobster. You have a mitzvah to put on tefillin. You have a mitzvah to keep Shabbos. Why not just say, you have to learn Torah? Why do we explain this mitzvah circuitously to teach your children? The Lubavitcher Rebbe explains, when it comes to studying Torah, a person is always a child. And thus the commandment, teach your children, can also apply inwardly. The biggest rabbi of all time will tell you, I don't know. Shlomo Melech is called the wisest person that ever lived. He learned the mitzvah of paraduma, right? We talked about this yesterday. What's paraduma? You have someone that's impure. So what happens? The Kohen, they take a perfectly red heifer, right? Never been worked, only has, 0 hair sticking up on the back, perfectly red. They shecht it. They then mix it with the red string and with some hyssop, and they put it in beautiful spring water, and then they pour it on this impure person. Well, the Kohen is doing the pouring. So this pure Kohen is dumping this mixture now on this impure Jew. The impure Jew then becomes pure, and the Kohen who is pure then becomes impure. Shlomo Melech said, I do not understand this mitzvah, ergo I don't understand any mitzvah. It's exactly what the Lubavitcher Rebbe is saying right here. The mitzvah, teach your children, it's like an illusion. You're still a child. Have that zeal and zest and passion and heart and soul into the learning like a child does. You can learn so much from children. One should never say, oh, I'm 50 now. I've read through the Torah, 40 times. You can't teach me anything new. On the contrary, the Torah is infinite. No matter how many times we've set foot in it, we can always discover new insights and uncover deeper meaning. We must approach it like children and be ready to listen and to receive. As you read in the Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avos, who is wise? One who can learn from everyone. Everyone can mean even someone younger than you, even your own little child or student. Baruch Hashem. Wow. That's the Lamed. Unbelievable. So we've done now Aleph, Mem, Yud, Lamed. Tomorrow we're going to do Kaf. Just when I thought Kaf would be a very hard one, so I wanted to do that one tomorrow because I have a lot of time to prepare. I'm finding so much unbelievable, Kaf is Gematria 20. Again, the Lamed, part of it, the Lamed is the Kaf. People, I implore you, if you think that life is working your 10 to 6 job, coming home, vegging out in front of Netflix, rinse, wash, repeat for 50 years until you retire, I cannot think of anything more tragic. And I know more than anyone, 27 and a half years of my life was this matzav. Drugs, girls, everything. But the crazy part was I thought that I was a good Jew. Why? I believed in God. I had a Jewish star and I loved Israel. And I, sat down for a Pesach Seder and I lit Hanukkah candles. So I'm just as good a Jew as everyone. That's so illogical, people. If you want to get inspired to better your life, start with just the Hebrew letters. If you can see that Hashem created the world through the Torah, and the foundation of the Torah is just the letters itself. I mean, you look at a house. What's a house? A house is just little wooden, beams that were put together and then just made this beautiful mansion that you see. But the inner workings of it are just, wooden beams, a little bit of cement. Well, that's the Torah. The Torah's the ikar, the essence, the flickering light of the Torah is just the letters itself. And every single one is a world unto itself. They are all divine. They are all unique. They are all powerful. They are all special. And you can learn the world from them if you just take that first step and try. Wishing everybody a wonderful, wonderful day.